New charges. A San Diego County Sheriff's deputy is back in jail as the sex abuse case against him grows. The trauma of family separation. California lawmakers are trying to get the president to acknowledge the consequences of his family separation policy.
When the glider surfaces and connects to satellite, it has a very specific ding-ding sound that it makes, and it is like a Pavlovian response.
Drone technology and the health of our oceans, how it's allowing San Diego researchers to do important work in Antarctica. And a look back on the life and music of Aretha Franklin. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The California State Senate passed a resolution today asking the nation's top leaders to apologize to immigrant children who were separated from their parents at the border. KPBS immigration reporter Jean Guerrero has more.
California Senator Kevin De Leon says the Trump administration is dragging its feet on family reunifications, with hundreds still separated, in part because no one has acknowledged wrongdoing.
They created the problem. They need to fix the problem and make sure there is clear accountability that every single child, every single baby that is in the hands of the United States government falls safely in the hands of their mothers and fathers.
So the measure calls on the president and Congress to acknowledge the damage caused by family separations and for Congress to apologize for it. The measure cites research by top health organizations showing that the stress of family separations can cause long-term disruptions to children's brains. California Senator Richard Pan, who introduced the bill, likened the practice to Japanese internment.
The American Academy of Pediatrics has called it government-sanctioned child abuse, and so we should apologize to these children we have permanently harmed.
Because the resolution passed, the president and leaders of Congress will receive copies of it for consideration. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
The ACLU is asking a federal judge in San Diego to allow some immigrant families to be reunified in the U.S. rather than Central America. Hundreds have yet to be reunified. The ACLU argues the government should allow some of those reunifications to happen in the U.S. because children with legitimate asylum claims have a right to have their parents with them, and some parents may have been misled or coerced into agreeing to deportation. The judge is expected to make a decision in the coming days. Newspapers across the country today are offering a strong support of freedom of press. Nearly 350 newspapers dedicated their opinion pages to speak up against critics such as President Trump. The San Diego Union-Tribune is part of the group. Editorial and opinion director Matt Hall says the campaign is a defense of journalism as a public service.
You know, this is not about politics. You had boards who see themselves on the conservative side, boards who see themselves on the liberal side, weighing in today because this is a defense of the work that we do every day, more so than an attack on a president's policies.
Some of President Trump's criticism of the press was on display this morning. The president sent out several tweets about what he calls the fake news media. He also criticized the Boston Globe, which led today's editorial campaign. A San Diego sheriff's deputy has been arrested once again in an ongoing sex abuse case. 5 new charges have been filed against Richard Fisher. He had been on bail as he fights accusations from 13 women. His charges include assault and battery by an officer, sexual battery, and false imprisonment. Fisher says the claims are false. He will be arraigned on the new charges tomorrow in Vista. The California Attorney General's office is weighing in on the investigation to the death of Earl McNeil. Yesterday, we reported that activists and community members were calling for the DA's office to recuse itself from the investigation, alleging McNeil was a paid informant. KPBS hasn't been able to confirm that, but we know McNeil was a witness in a 2011 murder trial that resulted in a life sentence. Now we know the California Attorney General's office told the DA they see no basis for recusal. A spokesperson for the DA's office says they plan to continue with the McNeil investigation. San Diego City Auditor Eduardo Luna announced his resignation this week. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says he's heading north, but not far.
The city auditor's office under Luna's leadership has exposed some inconvenient truths for San Diego: government waste, inefficiencies, and vulnerabilities. His office has won numerous awards for its reports, including a 2016 audit of the city's pedestrian safety program. Luna started the office from scratch in 2007 and says city staffers at the time had to undergo a culture shift.
So it was introducing this new type of auditing and trying to really be value added. It took a lot of skill being able to work with the administration and gain their trust that we're there to help. And I think if you look at the number of reports that we've issued and the recommendations that we made, over the last few years, we had 100% agreement.
Luna could have been reappointed next year, but Mayor Kevin Faulkner had already started searching for a replacement this summer. Luna says he's starting a similar job in Beverly Hills on October 1st. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
California is reporting an increase in tax revenue from legalized marijuana. From April through June, the state collected $74 million. That's up from $60 million at the start of the year when retail sales began. The tax revenue does not include the sale of medical marijuana. Despite the increase, the amount of tax revenue is below initial projections from Governor Jerry Brown. The FDA has approved the first generic competitor to Mylan, the company that makes the EpiPen. The EpiPen is a device that can help people quickly treat dangerous allergic reactions. The parent company had been criticized in recent years for the cost of the EpiPen, which can be in the hundreds of dollars. Teva, the maker of the generic version, has not announced how much its alternative will cost. San Diego researchers are deploying new tools to study the Antarctic's underwater food web. NOAA scientists have tracked krill populations in the southern oceans for years, but for the first time, they plan to use autonomous drones to help with the research. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
Krill are tiny crustaceans that got a moment in the spotlight during the 2011 animated film Happy Feet 2.
Well, we are krill. We are meant to look the same. Not me, Bill. There's only one of me in all the world. I am one in a trillion.
Krill are an important part of the Antarctic food web that feeds whales, seals, penguins, and people. The tiny animals are known for their large underwater swarms.
So this is all we are. Lunch. To think we spent our whole lives not knowing the truth. Goodbye, Krill World.
National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration scientists have tracked fluctuating krill populations for years. NOAA's Christian Reese says it's part of an international effort.
So we study krill so that we understand whether its trends in abundance are likely to be influenced by how much fishing effort we do, but also whether that fishing effort will then impact the upper trophic levels like penguins and seals.
But packing up a research vessel and traveling to the bottom of the world takes time and money. Both are in short supply at a federal agency with an eye on shrinking budgets. So Reese says his team hopes to do much of that work with autonomous drones.
We can collect data on the water conditions, we can collect data on how much food is out there for krill, and then literally we can collect data on how much biomass of krill there is.
Anthony Casio handles one of two Teledyne manufactured undersea gliders.
Okay, I'll go up a little bit. Hold the outside.
He's inside a unique lab at the Southwest Fisheries Science Center in La Jolla.
All right, let it go. Yeah, it looks good. You got the tail? All right, let's take it up.
The 66-foot-long tank here holds more than 520,000 gallons of seawater.
Let's go south.
That makes it large enough to put one of the gliders through its paces.
All right, let's put it down. You got it, Stephanie?
Once in the water, the glider's software takes over. At the surface, it'll connect with a satellite.
And then it'll go get its GPS coordinates, make sure it knows where it's at, figure out where it's going based off of the directions we told it, and then it starts to dive. Like right now, it's starting to dive.
Today, the mission is a couple of routine dives inside the large tank. The watertight drone is slow but deliberate.
These are deep gliders, so they go to 1,000 meters, and these are also the biggest gliders that Teledyne has manufactured.
Jen Walsh is one of 3 pilots that will watch over the drones on their long winter mission in the Antarctic. She says the machines will do most of the work when they're in the field. They'll dive and surface as they go back and forth over a pre-planned survey area. Piloting is mostly a hands-off operation.
If the glider is in an area of not very complex bathymetry, we're not worried about ice where it is. Maybe it's pretty far offshore at this point. Sometimes that just means keeping an eye on it, making sure it's surfacing when we anticipate that it's going to surface, and sometimes I won't have to get it or give it any direction at all.
The vessels will have to navigate very cold and possibly rough seas. A lot can go wrong. Wall says the drones do surface and check in regularly, and she can monitor the gliders in San Diego on any internet-connected computer.
There's the connections. When the glider surfaces and connects to satellite, it has a very specific ding-ding sound that it makes, and it is like a Pavlovian response. My husband at home will hear it. Oh, your glider's up. And it just means it's connected, which is good, because if it's doing 1,000-meter dives, which it's going to do in the Antarctic, that can take up to 4 hours.
Research biologist Anthony Cascio dropped the drones into the water off the coast of San Diego. The vessel spent 2 weeks at sea practicing maneuvers over and around the San Diego Trough, which is just off the coast of La Jolla. NOAA officials say the vessels will head south this fall for their first research mission in the Antarctic. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
NOAA officials say drones cannot collect water or fish samples, so research ships are still needed.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the former CIA director claims President Trump is trying to silence his critics by revoking their security clearance. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Monsoonal moisture will be on the decrease as we go throughout the next couple of days, bringing our inland thunderstorm chances primarily to the mountainous terrain to an end. Remaining warm, though, all the while even warmer throughout some of the inland valley locations. And well, we could see some changes this weekend, perhaps into early next week. Into the evening, still talking about flash flood watches again out toward Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna. We've had a few heavy downpours already occurring. Of course, here we have to worry about the terrain and the quick runoff, though, again, like I said, this pattern will be breaking down as we go throughout the next couple of days. We're going to talk about tomorrow before we jump into the forecast. The Padres taking on the Diamondbacks. Weather conditions looking good. First pitch forecast right around 77 degrees. Back to the now, and notice again overall it's quiet, but you start to see the bubbling up effect here, that monsoonal moisture banking up against the higher terrain, where we do have some showers and some thunderstorms. As we look regionally, you see most areas quiet, but again even some of the deserts in the Four Quarters talking about these showers and these thunderstorms that will tend to weaken with the loss of the daytime heating. Later on tonight, down to 70 Oceanside, Chula Vista 71, Borrego Springs down to 79 as those thunderstorms calm down. Thickening clouds once again, temperatures dropping into the mid-70s. And for Friday, it's pretty seasonable here for most. We're running a little above normal here in terms of our temperatures, and hot and dry conditions continue over the desert southwest as a whole, aside from a few of those showers and thunderstorms further east into the Four Corners. Borrego Springs 104 for tomorrow. San Diego 83. We should be talking about the mid-70s. Weekend outlook, notice that high pressure anchored. That's going to keep the moisture off to the east for the most part over the weekend. Coastal locations, for the most part, about the same right into early week. We'll see our temperatures into the low 80s for highs. Inland, a little warmer as we venture our way into early next week. Let's talk about the mountainous terrain. Notice the thunderstorm chances going downhill, but they could come back with some monsoonal moisture by early next week, even out toward the deserts, perhaps by Tuesday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povick. Back to you, Ebony.
San Diego State University opened its current campus in 1931. Now, almost 9 decades later, one of the first students to set foot there finally got his diploma. KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov was there.
I am inspired by your story, Bill.
Bill Vogt is 105 years old.
I'm fortunate to be here.
And today, he got his diploma.
Well, I was surprised, the main thing. Never thought I'd see that document anywhere.
Vogt graduated more than 80 years ago, winter 1935. But they didn't hand out diplomas to off-season graduates back then.
We didn't have his actual diploma, and the school means so much to him. So they went to work on trying to see if they could find his original diploma, which they were able to do somehow. And so it's just really an important, meaningful thing.
Vogt's first semester was at the original SDSU campus in University Heights before the current campus opened in 1931. He says tuition was $35 a semester, and only 14 other students graduated with him.
We were all really kind of anxious to see what the new campus was like. Well, it was pretty bleak, to say the least, but it was new. We were hoping that it was going to be a successful school.
Vogt's diploma says he studied commerce. He went on to serve 3 decades in the Navy during World War II and the Korean and Vietnam Wars. So what use is his diploma now?
I'm going to hang it on the wall with pride. And I can say, yes, I graduated from a fine school.
Katie Shulov, KPBS News.
Vogt became the oldest known SDSU alumni lifetime member in May. When his family wanted to get him a frame to commemorate the honor, his family discovered he did not have a diploma to put it in. Sharing the unique stories of people in the San Diego region is the aim of the KPBS Explore project. Above the 10 is the latest documentary produced from this initiative. It follows an unlikely team of San Diego squash players as they take on what has traditionally been an elite sport. I spoke with the team's coach about their journey. Okay.
A squash court seemed like an ideal place to meet Renato Paiva.
What's the objective?
So similar to tennis or ping pong, I hit the ball once, you hit the ball once. If you make a mistake, you get a point. The difference is that we share the same space and you can use all the angles possible.
So what makes a good serve?
So I'll show you what a serve could be.
Okay.
The ball's gonna go your way.
Okay.
Here it comes.
Okay.
Paiva has experience coaching amateurs. The former internationally ranked player and Harvard University assistant coach now helps transform San Diego students from novice to competitive squash players.
So the racket is a similar size than a tennis racket.
Students come here to the REMAC on the UC San Diego campus for Access Youth Academy practice. It's an after-school enrichment program for children from economically disadvantaged communities. Paiva is the executive director.
And that was 12 years ago an absolute leap of faith. I tell people that squash in San Diego is beach volleyball in Alaska. No one knows about it, you don't really play much, and the outcome is absolutely phenomenal.
We'll see it all unfold in the documentary Above the 10.
You have to rip the win away from her. Make sense?
Chris Holloway is the movie's producer.
Like, I know this program. It's going to resonate. You know, it's going to feel good to watch because I just know how it makes me feel, like being there.
Holloway started gathering footage of the program in 2010. He says it started as a project to help with the nonprofit's fundraising efforts and became so much more.
My big takeaway from the movie is to just try new things, right? These kids, you know, when they started the program, I can't imagine that they thought, you know what, in 3 years I'm going to be at Yale University playing against private school kids for a national title and competing. But try new things and see what happens.
Trying new things, such as following Paiva's crash course on how to hit the plum-sized squash ball.
You want to try again? One hand. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, that is brilliant!
Yay!
That's it.
Above the 10 airs tonight at 8:30 right here on KPBS. This weekend brings a tribute to Gershwin, a ballet for young children, and a bluegrass festival where tents are highly encouraged. Here with more is KPBS arts editor Nina Guerin.
The music of George and Ira Gershwin will be celebrated this weekend at Bayside Summer Nights. Considered America's finest composers, this program will focus on songs from beloved musicals Porgy and Bess and An American in Paris. The concert features Broadway singer Norm Lewis, as well as famed New York City ballet dancer Robert Fairchild, who earned a Tony nomination for his role in the revival of An American in Paris. Speaking of ballet, this is a great time to introduce young ones to dance thanks to Fairy Tales in the Park. Put on by San Diego Civic Youth Ballet, you'll see classic stories like Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella come to life in the form of ballet. The dances are performed by students of the Balboa Park School. Celebrating its 10th anniversary, the event also features a fairy tale village where there will be crafts, face painting, and more. Finally, Summergrass San Diego is a bluegrass festival that encourages visitors to bring tents, guitars, and their jamming spirit. There's a campground at Vista's Antique Gas and Steam Engine Museum, and the after-hours jam sessions have become a fan favorite. But you don't need to rough it to enjoy this 3-day festival. Just show up each day to watch mainstays like Joe Mullins and the Radio Ramblers and up-and-coming voices like the Gilly Girls Band, a group made up of 2 sets of twins, all of them sisters. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
One of America's distinct voices in music, the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, passed away in her home in Michigan today. She had been battling pancreatic cancer. President Donald Trump took time to remember her today at the White House.
She was given a great gift from God, her voice, and she used it well. People loved Aretha. She's a special woman, so I just want to pass on my warmest, best wishes and sympathies to her family.
There have been countless tributes today from politicians, musicians, and fans. AP reporter Matt Friedman looks back on Aretha Franklin's life.
She was the unchallenged Queen of Soul. Aretha Franklin was the greatest popular vocalist of her time. Graced with natural talent, she was a 4-octave mezzo-soprano. As well as rigorous training, Franklin recorded hundreds of tracks and racked up dozens of hits. 20 of them hit #1 on the R&B charts. Her best-known song demanded R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Well, then it was kind of, as you say, a woman's anthem, a battle cry, a mantra. But everyone wants respect. Everyone needs respect, from the young to the very old, and in the middle, male, female. We all want respect, and we all want to be appreciated.
Franklin ultimately took home more than 20 Grammy Awards and was the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Born in Memphis in 1942, Franklin and her family moved to Detroit 2 years later. Performing in the gospel choir at her father's Baptist church gave Franklin a solid foundation in musical performance. President Bill Clinton awarded her the National Medal of Arts, and President George W. Bush awarded Franklin the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She performed at 3 presidential inaugurations, including a rousing performance of My Country 'Tis of Thee at the inauguration of President Barack Obama. A legend whose music will echo for years to come. Matt Friedman, Associated Press.
Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Coming up on Morning Edition, picking the tab up for med school, the new scholarship at New York University that covers tuition for every new, current, and future student. And on Midday Edition, a special village that helps people take a trip down memory lane, how it helps patients and their families dealing with Alzheimer's. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/Evening Edition. And we leave you tonight with more from Aretha Franklin, including her final public performance. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.
Answer my prayer. Answer my prayer, baby. Answer my prayer. Answer my prayer, baby. This is my prayer. Answer my prayer.
prayer.